A chilly night in Cedar City has driven a number of fans who continue to file into the America First Event Center in the campus of Southern Utah University, where we are ready to bring you some college gymnastics on ESPN+. Alongside Mikkel Merkley, Spencer McLaughlin with you. She's filling in for us on pretty short notice. It's great to have you here, Mikkel, and we appreciate that. But a couple of top 25 squads come into the AFEC here tonight in college gymnastics. It's not easy to find a couple of top 25 teams squaring off in a dual meet, but these are two teams who have already seen each other once before.
Yes, we're so lucky here in the state of Utah. We have so much gymnastics talent. These guys are regular foes, and I'm excited to see them out on the mat tonight.
BYU has knocked off Southern Utah the last couple times they've met in dual meets over the past couple of seasons. They also placed third, while Southern Utah placed fourth at the Best of Utah to begin the season. And Mikkel, that was a little bit of a rude awakening in a sense for both of these teams when they came out with solid scores to open the season. Both coaches probably felt decently about how they performed in that meet, but Utah comes out, puts up a 197.1 and makes it very clear that they're one of the top teams in the nation. So these two squads have seen the best of the best in college gymnastics.
For sure, Utah's always putting up great scores. These two teams are just happy to be out competing tonight. Like many teams across the country, they have been dealing with COVID regulations. They've had to switch their lineups up quite a bit. We've been seeing a lot of different names in the lineups that we haven't seen in years past. It's been a great opportunity for the younger athletes to get a chance to perform that may have not had that chance before. I'm just really excited to see what they're able to put up tonight. They both seem to have their more consistent lineups back, and we're just going to see what they can do.
BYU not being at full strength was a focal point of that Best of Utah meet a couple of weeks ago, but everybody is back, including Sadie Miner-Van Tassel, one of the best all-around gymnasts on this Cougars squad, Mikkel, who I'm sure BYU and their head coach Gard Young is happy to have back.
For sure. Sadie is always nationally ranked. She was the reigning MRGC Gymnast of the Week last week. She has huge floor. I'm excited to see her double A, and is just a very big performer all the way around.
And plenty of other great performers will be on your screen in just a little bit. We'll take a break. When we come back, looking at the history between these two squads, and we'll take you right up to the very first event. Keep it here on ESPN+.
I got COVID in September.
The countdown clock is on for the opening touch period. Again, Spencer McLaughlin with you alongside Mikkel Merkley, BYU gymnast in her own right from 2006 to 2010. And Mikkel, every time you get a chance to comment on college gymnastics, does it just bring back all the feels for you and what it's like to be out there and compete, and really just how much fun this and how great this sport is?
Oh, for sure. I love watching warm-ups. I love watching the teammates cheer their athletes on. These are probably the best friends that these guys will ever have. They see you at your highest highs and your lowest lows. And some of my college teammates are still some of my best friends today.
Well, Southern Utah came into the season ranked number 25 in the preseason WCGA coaches poll. It's the Women College Gymnastics Association. BYU started the year at number 18, but the interesting scoring world of college gymnastics now has Southern Utah ahead of the Cougars, who have slid back a few slots, despite BYU placing better than Southern Utah at the Best of Utah meet 2 weeks ago to open the season. You see Southern Utah there, the highest ranked team in the MRGC, yet they are last in the conference because in gymnastics, Mikkel, as you know, it's all about the score.
For sure. Wins and losses don't actually matter in gymnastics until postseason. It is very helpful because this could be a great meet for both teams. We're going to be looking for high scores so that we can get a good average going into the postseason.
That's what both of these squads will be looking for. BYU edged Southern Utah in both head-to-head meetings last year with a couple of scores over 196 inside the AFEC. Last year, 196.825 to 196.175. And then BYU came out scorching on February 12th, 2021 in Provo with a 197.075. And those are the sorts of scores that these coaches, Gard Young for BYU and Scotty Bauman for Southern Utah, if he sees those sorts of numbers tonight from his gymnasts, either one will be pleased.
For sure, we're still very early in the season. We don't want to see them scoring too high, too early, peaking. It's a long season. We want to make sure that these gymnasts can stay healthy. They're going to work to see those scores a little bit later in the year.
Ellie Cachola starts us off on vault, the freshman from Owasso.
Good start on vault. We're looking for a combination of height and distance from the vault, and of course the stuck landing. The way it works is every step you take on vault is about 1/10 off. Additionally, each vault has a different start value, meaning a different top high score the gymnast can get. The vault we just saw right there was a 9.95 start value. That is the highest she could receive.
And there you get a look at Sadie Miner Van Tessel, who was back last week for BYU in the win at Nebraska. The team put up a 195.75, and Miner Van Tessel contributed with a 9.8 on bars, her first of the season, and she gives it her second go-around here in Cedar City.
Great start so far for the Cougars on bars. We're looking for handstands and a stuck dismount. Additionally, we'll be looking for a release on high bar to high bar and a release from high bar to low bar typically. Overall, great routine to start with, a little bit of a hop on the dismount. Your first competitor is so important. It's what sets the tone for the rest of your bar lineup, and both athletes on vault and bars did a great job with that.
Back over to the vault for Southern Utah, and the senior from Spanish Fork, Utah, Stephanie Tervort, a 9.8 last week on her vault routine, has done a couple of vault skills this season, averaging a 9.775. Coach Baumann says she has one of the best amplitudes on the team at this event and a 9.95 start value to boot.
Steph does the same vault we just saw, Yurchenko full twisting layout. Great start, a little bit of a pike down coming out of that layout. We want to see the body 100% straight, does a great job controlling that landing, took a little bit of a step. We always want to minimize any steps we're taking. It's not a solid deduction. So if you take a small step, it's a small deduction, whereas if you take a large step, it's a large deduction.
Alex Mason on the bars for BYU, and seventh-year head coach Gard Young, a BYU Hall of Fame member himself, an Olympic silver medalist. Spent 10 years on Team USA. He watches his sophomore from Rancho Cucamonga, California, who had a 9.85 last week in this event.
Alex is such a calm competitor. I love the energy that she brings. She just gets up and does her job. We've seen a great start so far. Just prepping for the dismount right now. Ooh, holds on to that handstand. It's so risky. You have to hit the handstand within 10 degrees, but it's scary because if you fall over, it is an automatic 5/10 off. Huge landing. We are going to see a big score for Alex.
A stuck landing gets some applause from her teammates, and back over to vault, and the gymnast that the Flippin' Birds call the Vault Queen, Morgan Alfaro, the redshirt senior from Placentia, California, and El Dorado High School, a 9.85 on this event last week, has scored 9.9 or higher every year since she was a sophomore.
Huge, huge vault. You can see how she was totally straight in the air and just drives that landing into the ground. Does not move, does not give the judges anything to deduct on.
First score is officially in, and it is a 9.7 on the bars for Sadie Miner Van Tessel for BYU, and a 9.6 for Ellie Cachola for Southern Utah. And now on the bars, Abby Beeston, the senior from Lehigh, who is averaging a I skipped one in the order, and my broadcast partner so aptly corrected me here a moment ago. Lindsay Hunter is up next, a 9.775 last week. She's done that twice on bars this year.
Huge Tkachev opening for Hunter. A new addition to the BYU's bar lineup, and she has just performed really well. Again, on those releases, we want to see the gymnast hit that handstand within 10 degrees. Great start so far, just winding up for the dismount. Big double lay, solid landing, not quite the stick we're hoping for, but overall controls it so well. Very, very small deduction for that landing.
Rachel Smith gets her turn on the vault now, a 9.85 a week ago, averaging a 9.825 for the Flippin' Birds on vault this year. One of 3 vaulters for Coach Baumann to have a 10.0 start value. And you see the scores trickling in on your screen, a 9.75 for Stephanie Tervort after a 9.8 last week. And now she watches her teammate Rachel Smith, the senior from Hernando, Minnesota.
As Spencer mentioned, this is a little bit different vault. The athletes we've seen leading up to this did their Yurchenko, came on and then twisted off the vault. In this vault, she actually twists onto the vault. It's a little bit more difficult. It's hard to get good amplitude coming out of that twist. Let's see how she handles it.
Senior from Mississippi ready, off she goes.
Full on pike off. Big vault, a little too much power there at the end. Does have to take the step back. It's fun to note that she doesn't have to do it in the pike. If she just did it in the tuck position with her knees bent, it's worth the same. Doing it in the pike, it just is kind of like a flex. It shows that she's strong enough and coordinated enough and capable enough to do it that way.
And now we will go over to bars with Abby Beeston, the senior from Lehigh, who, Michaela, you talk about an athletic family. She's got 5 siblings who all play or played college sports. So I don't think it was really a choice for her growing up that she was going to pick a sport, and she has clearly found her go-to.
Over the bar mount, right into a nice handstand clear hip. Huge Ginger, immediate bell. You'll notice these gymnasts are doing this jump over the low bar mount. You're allowed to stand on the low bar 1 time per routine. So we'll see the gymnast mount from different spots to accommodate that. Again, just the tiniest shift on the landing. You can see these gymnasts have such great control of their landings. As the season continues on, we will see those little shifts, those steps start to disappear.
Back to the vault, and Caitlin Cash Money Co., they call her, who matched a career high with a 9.9, or set a new career high with her vault routine. It was a meet high in that event.
Huge Yurchenko, 1.5. Again, a little bit of a step on the landing. We won't see that as season goes on. This is a 10.0 start value. Very difficult to do. It is a blind landing, meaning you cannot see the ground until you have completed the entire flip and have landed. So hard to stick.
And she is one of those other flipping birds for Coach Bauman and company to have a 10.0 start value. Anissa Alvarado back over to the bars, a 9.85 last week, career best mark of 9.925.
Anissa is a very consistent competitor. She's always ranked about top 50 in the nation. She's always just very calm. It's so easy to start rushing on bars. Once your pacing gets off, then it's so hard to recover from, but I don't think I've ever seen Anissa rush her routine.
Score in for her teammate Lindsay Hunter, a 9.825. The junior turns in a season high on bars for Coach Young and the Cougars.
Anissa does a little bit different of a more difficult release. Her release goes low bar to high bar instead of high bar to high bar. Same difficulty level. In gymnastics, the skills are ranked level A through E. A being the easiest, E being the most difficult. You need to have at least a D or an E in these sets in order to get a full set. Great landing for Alvarado. Overall, such a good routine. The Cougars are looking so good on bars tonight.
Kayla Horton rounds it out on vault for Southern Utah here in rotation number 1. Flippin' Birds trying to knock off BYU in a dual meet for the first time since 2019.
Brand new vault. Handles it so well. The same vault we saw her teammate do earlier. 10.0 start value. That is huge for a team. Again, little step on the landing. Those will go away as we get more experience and as season continues on.
Beeston, a 9.825 for BYU on the bars. Southern Utah, meanwhile, got a 9.775 from Morgan Alfaro. Rachel Smith, a 9.85, and a 9.875 from Caitlin Coe. Strong couple of weeks for Kate Coe on the vault, a 9.9 last week, the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Specialist of the Week in what was her first vault of the year, and she follows it up with a 9.875. Has to be a very good feeling for the senior from San Gabriel High School in California.
Oh, for sure. Good scores just lead to more good scores. So when you go in feeling confident and knowing what you can do, it's such a good feeling, and it's such a good feeling for your teammates knowing that you are there to perform for them.
final routine of rotation number 1. Haley P2, the senior from Park City, Utah.
Great start. Nice Jaeger. Kip cast bail. Overall handling it so well. She's competed for the Cougars on bars for several years now, a 5th-year senior. Big dismount, full twisting double back. That does count as a stuck landing. The Cougars will see a big score for that one. It is tricky. Gymnasts are allowed to land with their feet a little bit apart as long as they can click their heels together, which is what you saw Haley do. That is not a deduction, that is to show that their feet are close enough together to the judges.
Rotation number 1 in the books. We'll see what P2 and Horton bring in to see if those scores will change for the Thunderbirds and the Cougars. More gymnastics after this. And the scores are in. Southern Utah on rotation number 1, a 48.85, and BYU, we're still waiting on that final score to officially go up on the Jumbotron from Haley P2, but at least a 49.025 for the Cougars. And Mikkel, after seeing that first rotation, how do you think Guard Young is feeling about his squad that is playing, or competing in, I should say, their 3rd straight meet on the road?
You know, I think that's a very good score. Anytime that a team is getting 49 or better, that's something that coach is usually really proud of. I'm actually a little surprised about the Thunderbird score. I thought we'd see closer to 49. It is important to note that in gymnastics, 6 athletes compete, only 5 scores count. So the Thunderbirds were able to drop that 9.6 from the beginning, but that's why we have to wait on the scores here.
And you see that 9.925 from Anissa Alvarado. That matches her career high on the bars, so a strong opening routine for the senior from Park City to lead the way. And Nikki Thomas has got us going in rotation number 2 for Southern Utah. And never mind, I got fooled because the touch period is still rolling. I thought that was going to be a little bit fast. I looked down, I saw Thomas there, and I said, all right, I guess we're really moving along to get. Who needs warm-ups, really?
The warm-ups are important. These athletes came here at 5 p.m., did all their events, got all their warm-ups up, but that is a long meet for parents and spectators and everyone to watch. So they get a 2-minute touch following warm-ups, following the opening, so that just for safety, get warmed back up so that they're ready to compete.
And for someone who did college gymnastics, such as yourself, Spencer McLaughlin with you alongside Mikkel Merkley, if you're just joining us, for someone who did college gymnastics, what is the lead up to a meet like for a gymnast? What's going through your mind? How do you get yourself loose and sufficiently warm to do these events, which are won really by inches or millimeters sometimes? How do you prepare for that?
So it's important to do exactly what you do in the gym. You don't want to perform bigger, you don't want to hold back, and so really the most preparation goes into practice, obviously. The day of the meet usually looks like breakfast with your teammate, you come check out the facilities, usually come check out, and then again, these guys are full-time students, so it usually involves an entire morning of homework and classes. They have missed now Thursday and Friday of school, possibly contacting their professors to find out anything. And then, yes, you come here at 5 to start physical therapy, and then warm-ups, and then you go to each individual event and do a 15-minute warm-up on each of them, and then change and start the meet.
And then once you get going, it's just sort of, you just got to let it fly, right? You can't overthink how you want to do each event or your technique. You just have to be able to sort of let it go and trust your preparation at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Vault is definitely the hardest as far as that goes because it's so fast. The other events you can kind of work your way into. You mount on bars, you're good to go. But after that, vault is just a quick one.
It is. So Southern Utah trailing after rotation number 1. They got a win here last week with a 196.55 against a Pac-12 opponent in Arizona who put up a 195.5, and BYU, meanwhile, is yet to cross the 196 threshold this season. They're still top 25 in the country, and we've talked, Mikkel, about the prolific nature of these two programs, and they are both excellent perennial top 25 schools in college gymnastics. And when you can put out a 195 or anything around a 195 and not feel great about it and say that, you know, there's a lot of room to improve. There are a lot of programs out there that would put up a 195 and it would be approaching a career record.
Again, we're so spoiled here in Utah. There's so many good teams. Yes, the fact that the Thunderbirds and the Cougars have not loved their performances so far, and that is what they're putting up, is something to be proud of in itself.
So Coachella, a 9.6. Southern Utah drops that score on the vault. They count a 9.75, a 9.775 to go with a 9.85, 9.875, and a 9.8. So they do get over the 49-point threshold of 49.05. Cougars a slight advantage after a 9.9, the highest score we've seen so far in this meet from Haley Pitu. And she is someone who, when you watch that routine, Mikkel, you thought that, or excuse me, Alvarado's got the highest score, but no surprise to see Pitu with a 9.9. So
it's honestly, it comes down to the landings. At this level of gymnastics, it comes down to, are you hitting your handstands and can you hit your landings? Everyone here can do the big releases. They can do the big vaults. It's how well can you control them.
So to rotation number 2 we go. An excellent crowd inside the America First Event Center. And Alex Mason starts us off on the vault as she is getting loose. She will start us off here in just a moment after Southern Utah sends Nikki Thomas out to compete on bars. The junior from Stafford, Virginia, averaging a 9.813 this year through 2 meets, a 9.825, and she has got a huge double layout over here on bars, and that's one of the reasons that she's leading off.
Again, leadoff is a very important job. It is your job to set the tone. So typically your leadoff girl is your most consistent competitor. So we should just expect to see a really good set here.
Thomas, the junior from Brook Point High School in Virginia, awaiting. And what are those moments like when you've gone through you've gone through the touch period, you practice all week, you're waiting for these exact moments, you're waiting and ready to go.
It really is. You have to wait until the judge salutes you. You'll see on some of our wider shots, you'll see a little green flag go up, and the green flag means, okay, I'm ready for you now. And so sometimes the athlete is ready and the judge is not, and it's not the funnest just sitting there waiting, not getting nervous. Oh, worked so hard to hold that landing. We're gonna see a little bit more of a deduction on this one, only because it was short. If you're going to take a step, you wanna take an over-rotation step, but honestly, a very good mistake to make. You could see she was really going for the stick. That
was Alex Mason, the sophomore for BYU, and now Nikki Thomas finally gets her turn on the bars.
And again, great start. We'd expect nothing less from Nikki. Beautiful handstands. Look at that toe point. Big double lay. Solid landing. Big stick to open up the bar rotation for SUU.
And these Thunderbird fans love their gymnastics, and they had an extra level of excitement in the cheer for Thomas, and a potentially strong start to the second rotation here inside the AFEC. And we go back over to vault, and Lexi Griffith, the senior from Allen, Texas, has not competed yet in 2022. This her first routine, and she awaits that ever sought after salute from the judges.
We mentioned before, BYU did have some COVID struggles just right at the beginning of the season. A lot of new faces to these lineups. Gorgeous Yurchenko half, great control on the landing. Again, 9.95 start value, meaning that is the highest she can score. Very difficult vault. It is again a blind landing, meaning she cannot see the ground until she has already landed the vault.
Hannah Nip gets set for her bar routine. Last week in this event, a 9.875, but it was her beam routine that had Thunderbird fans applauding with a 9.95, the second highest score in school history, and she's done it twice.
Hannah has such pretty lines. You'll just see her whole body just goes right through that toe point. Beautiful Jaeger into, oh, nice bail into a toe catch high. That connection value is great for bonus. All bar routines. Another solid landing for Hannah Nip and the T-Birds. All bar routines started at 9.4. You have to do bonus moves, either very difficult moves or moves in combination to get those extra 6/10 of bonus. By her doing that bail immediately into the toe heck, she will receive bonus tenths for doing that.
Her career best on bars, a 9.925. We'll see if she approaches that. Alex Mason with a 9.5. Nikki Thomas a 9.875 to start this second rotation for BYU and Southern Utah. The Cougars bested the Thunderbirds in both dual meets last year, and here goes Haley Pitu on the vault.
Fifth-year competing vault brings lots of experience. Huge Yurchenko full. You could see how much control she had in that vault. Tons and tons of amplitude. Pike down just a tiny, tiny bit, leading to that little hop. But overall, we should expect a very good score for Haley.
Caitlin Coe steps up to the bars for the Thunderbirds after earlier today receiving a 9.875 on her vault routine. She will look to get to that number or perhaps even a little bit better on the bars. A career high 9.85.
Strong open. Maloney immediately into the pack. Woo, catches a little bit close, recovers so well. I cannot believe she made that. That would take so much strength. She caught the pack a little close to the bar, which means she had no swing out of it, and that was just pure strength pulling that through. She handled getting that routine back on track so well. Bar routines are so short, but they are exhausting, and if you have to troubleshoot like that following your release, then it just uses so much energy, and she just handled it beautifully.
Elise Rollins over on the vault for BYU.
Beautiful full-on talk off for Elise. That's a new vault for her this year. Still getting a little bit of experience. Did a great landing. Again, tiny step, tiny deduction that we will see less of as the season goes on.
And I misspoke a moment ago. The high score that Caitlin Cash Money Coe's had on the bars is 9.875. She had that last week in the meet against Arizona, the first win of the season for the Thunderbirds, but now she will watch her teammate Mason Bentley off of a 9.85 last week in the win against the Wildcats as she goes for her bars routine.
Mason has a big opening move called a ray. In gymnastics, it's kind of tricky. There's one move called a Tkachev, but if you do it differently, if you put your feet on, if you do it in the Stalder position, it changes the value. So she goes toe on, toe off, immediate ray, immediate shoot over, a little bit loose with the legs there. We will see a deduction. Basically assume anything that is not perfect will receive just a little bit of a deduction. Big dismount. Again, very, very hard routine. Not only a lot of difficulty, but a lot of good connection value that we saw there.
Sadie Miner Van Tessel is set for her vault routine for BYU and the Cougars, following a 9.8 from Haley Pitu and a 9.875 from Lexi Griffith.
Sadie is such a strong vaulter. Yurchenko 1.5 controls the landing beautifully. 10.0 start value, very hard to do. 1.5 twists in the air to, again, the blind landing.
Competing for the first time last week, Miner Van Tessel scored a 9.825 on the vault. We'll see if she can beat that. That was a meet high last week in the win in Omaha against the Cornhuskers of Nebraska. And now we see our first look at Shai Murakami, who had a 9.875 last week on bars. She owns the school record in this event for the Flippin' Birds, a 9.95, and she has done it twice.
Oh, Higgins right into a Jaeger shoot over. Those Higgins you do not see very often. They take so much strength and shoulder flexibility. Prepping for a big dismount here. Full twisting double back, solid landing. We are going to see a huge score for Shai tonight.
Rounding out the vault for Coach Young and the Cougars, Sydney Benson, the sophomore from Riverton, averaging a 9.8 in this event. She has done that through both of BYU's meets this year, which has gotten the Cougars up to number 21 in the nation. Came into this season at number 18. That's where the Thunderbirds sit right now.
Such a huge vaulter. Came off a knee injury from last year. Didn't get to compete vault as much as she had hoped. Has just been a great contributor. You could see she had so much amplitude. We will definitely be seeing a 1.5 from her later in the season. Very strong vaulter. We'll finish up our bar rotation with Stephanie Trevort. Another just consistent performer for SUU.
She did not do bars last week. She has not done it this year.
Huge ginger right into the shoot over. It's so tricky when these athletes combine release moves, because if your first release is off at all, it makes the second one so dangerous. Big double leg, tiny step on the landing, but overall a very good set for Steph.
And how about Shai Murakami? She sets the school record. Again, she's already done that twice, now 3 times, a 9.95 on the bars for the senior from Las Vegas. Second rotation in the books, awaiting Tervort's score. We will hopefully have that for you on the other side of the break. Cougars and Flippin' Birds putting on a show in Cedar City. More action coming at you next.
I don't know what's going on with
the final tallies on the Jumbotron for Sydney Benson and Stephanie Tervort alongside Mikkel Merkley. Spencer McLaughlin with you. What a pleasure it is, and what a great crowd we've got here inside the AFEC to watch some outstanding college gymnastics, a couple of top 25 teams. Southern Utah is trying to knock off BYU for the first time in a dual meet since 2019 after the Cougars were victorious in both meetings a season ago, and a 9.95 on the bars from Shai Murakami is not going to help their case, Mikkel, or not going to hurt their case, I should say.
No, this was a huge set. Everything she did, she just did with perfection. We'll see. The judges aren't just looking for straight legs. They are looking for everything to be squeezing, and Shai does such a great job demonstrating that. Huge little combination here. Higgins, Yeager right into the bail. Again, we're looking for a lot of combinations to give us that bonus to get to our 10-0 start value. Huge dismount here. Just really nails it into the ground.
A 9.95. That is the best mark in school history. She has now done it 3 times. And on the other side for BYU, they had a couple of solid scores on their vaults. One of them an even 9.8 for Haley Pitu. She looked very comfortable during her routine.
Haley is such a dynamic vaulter. She brings a lot of experience to this vault lineup. It is her 5th year in it because she did get that bonus COVID year and was able to come back. And you can see that in really every event that she competes on. Just a calm senior presence.
And that is always very helpful. So we welcome you to our broadcast setup. We've got a little bit of a bird's eye view of the gymnastics from up here, but that allows us to see all. And thus far, what we have seen tonight, Mikkel, some really high-level gymnastics from both teams. Not perfect on either side for sure, but I think both coaches at this point pleased with what they've seen from their teams through 2 rotations.
You know, when I spoke with Guard, he said they are just grateful for any day that they can do gymnastics at this point. Coming since 2020 and then having a hard 2021, no team has been immune from what this pandemic has brought. And so any day that they get to have a meet, they are just happy to be here.
And the Cougars also are awaiting their first home meet of the year that comes next week. And you know, gymnastics has a different vibe with the crowd when you're a visiting team, but it still doesn't have. It doesn't give you the sort of momentum that you get when you're at home, and 3 straight meets on the road. How tough is that for this BYU team?
You know, it is hard. You have to adjust to equipment. Also, you are sleeping in a hotel. You're traveling. You're flying. You're on a bus. You're tired before you even start. So doing it 3 weeks in a row can be tricky, and I'm sure they are happy to be competing back home in Provo next week.
Well, the scores are in. Benson a 9.775 for BYU, a 9.8 for Tavort to round things out on bars for the Thunderbirds. So an even 49.0 for BYU on their second rotation over on vault. And the Flippin' Birds, as they are known, 49.2, and we are separated by .005 points here tonight thus far. And really, Mikkel, that is exactly what we expected with these two. They're separated by .025, as my director Ryan just told me, because I forgot how to do math. I haven't taken a class in far too long, clearly, but still a very close meet through half of our rotations, and that's exactly what we expected with these top 25 programs.
Yeah, for sure. Both of these teams are very good. We're going to see very big gymnastics, and not the mistakes we're going to be seeing are steps on landing. Maybe someone will go out of bounds. Like, not the big mistakes. We're not going to see a lot of falls. We're not going to see a lot of obvious things because they're so good, and that's what's leading to the tight margins.
Very, very tight thus far. They were tight a season ago, but BYU got the edge both times, and we are getting set for rotation number 3. It'll be the hometown Southern Utah Thunderbirds on the beam, and BYU gets to take a crack at their floor routines here on the road. And we were talking about being on the road a moment ago, but it has to be especially difficult in a floor routine when crowd involvement is such a huge part of what you do.
Gymnastics fans are pretty good about being gymnastics fans. If they see a floor routine that they love, they'll usually get into it. The fun part about floor normally is that your home team, your home crowd learns your floor routines. They know who to be excited for. They know what ones they love, and that is a little bit more challenging on the road.
This is Shai Murakami on the beam, who wowed the crowd with a 9.95 on her bars, and she leads off here in rotation number 3 for head coach Scotty Bauman in his 31st year coaching the Thunderbirds. A remarkable career.
Huge opening series. That is a 3/10 bonus for doing the flick, lay, flick. We don't get to see a lot of that very often. Shai brings a lot of difficulty to beam. You just saw that sheep jump. Her head goes back. She loses sight of the beam. Again, another very difficult move. Aerial back full in the tuck position. She is allowed to have her knees bent like that. It is called a tuck. It is not a deduction. Does a great landing. Overall, very solid opening routine.
And our first floor routine of the night here inside the AFEC, as the crowd has really filled in this place wonderfully. It's the freshman from Cincinnati, Eliza Millar.
BYU coaches say that she is just the preseason MVP, came in, worked so hard, and has just been ready to compete and is excited to be out there. On floor, we're going to be looking for tumbling passes that go both forward and backwards, in addition to a pass with at least 2 flips in it. Beautiful double pike to open. I was going to mention, on floor, you are allowed to take 1 step backwards without a deduction, but Millar did not even need that. She went ahead and just kept her feet together. Beautiful front lay, front full. What we're looking for on these front passes is that we want to see the shoulders stay up and even rise a little bit, and that rotating around the shoulders versus throwing the shoulders down to create that rotation. Millar preps for that final pass. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Great landing, great opening set for BYU.
Averaging a 9.725 this year through a couple of floor routines. We'll see if she can beat her career high of 9.775 and back over to the beam. And Southern Utah sends out the senior from Hernando, Mississippi, Rachel Smith, a 9.8 last week on the balance beam.
Rachel has such a hard series round off layout. So difficult to do because the round off is twisting. The beam is a little less than 4 inches wide at 10 centimeters. There is such little room for air, and she performs it beautifully. A little bit tight on that leap pass. We're looking for The judges don't want to have any questions of if you hit 180 degrees or not. That is a requirement on beam. You have to show that 180-degree split at some point in your routine. Big dismount. Round off back 1.5. You'll notice her routine was a little bit shorter. It is because she had so much difficulty in it. The idea is to get your skills done that you have to do and then just get off. Don't risk falling, don't risk wobbling. Get what you need to do done in the fewest amount of skills possible and then exit the beam with a solid landing.
Abby Beeston getting ready for her floor routine off of a career best 9.825 last week in the win against Nebraska.
Abby has such a fun floor routine. It's the evolution of dance. So we'll see it move from the 50s all the way through the TikTok trends of today. Preps for her opening pass. Front lay Rudy for a 1.5 twist. Again, great control in the landing. They are allowed to take one step back into the lunge. Does it so well. I love it when the crowd gets involved.
She had the engagement of a Southern Utah student earlier.
Preps for her final pass. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Huge landing, great control, exactly what the judges are looking for. The rules changed a couple of years ago. Floor start values used to be a 9.5. When they lowered all the start values down to 9.4, they said, but we'll give you a bonus 10th if you go ahead and end with a double back. So now you'll be noticing tonight many of the gymnasts end with that double tuck.
Emma Wisman steps up and mounts herself onto the balance beam. The senior from Salt Lake City, traveling a couple 100 miles south for her college gymnastics career.
Another big 3-part series here. Front aerial into the flick. That front aerial series is very tricky because it has to be connected, and that's so hard to switch directions while showing continuous movement. She does it very well. The judges will not take any deduction for that series.
Had a 9.85 on the balance beam last week against Arizona. That tied a career high.
Nice front toss into the beat jump. Again, these gymnasts, they'll do a jump into a harder skill for those bonus tenths that they are trying to earn. Cartwheel into side gainer full. Tiny step on the landing. Overall, very good set.
And back to the floor routine. It will be Abby Reeder, the 5'2" senior from Scranton, Pennsylvania. A 9.85 in her floor routine last week. First time she did floor in 2022, and it matched a career high.
You can see these lines on the ground. Those are your boundary lines. If you step out of the boundary line at any point, it is an automatic 1/10 off your score. Huge opening pass from Reeder though. Double twisting front layout into a front tuck. You are not going to see that kind of difficulty very often. The front double twist is an E-level skill. Very, very hard to do. You'll notice these gymnasts, they will often do dance up high, down low. That is a requirement. The judges need to see that they visit every corner of the floor, all 4 corners, and that they do things down low and up high. You'll also notice she did that little baby tumbling pass right there, the round-off layout. You are required to do a backward tumbling pass. That would fulfill that requirement. Ends with a good Rudy, a little bit crooked. She will probably receive a slight deduction because it wasn't 100% straight, but overall, great routine, especially for being as new to the floor lineup as she is.
Back to the balance beam with the sophomore from New York, Haley Voltaggio, a 9.65 in this event last week here at home, looking to improve upon that score.
Preps for her opening acro pass. Flick, lay. That is a huge opening series, so much difficulty. She will likely receive about 5/10 bonus just in that first pass alone. Big dismount, round off, back 1.5. Again, little hop on the landing. The judges are going to be strict on these landings because that's where most of the deductions are coming from. But overall, great opening set.
You see there through the first couple of scores that we've got up on the Jumbotron, advantage Southern Utah here in rotation number 3. And back over to the floor, and the senior competing in the all-around tonight for the 2nd straight week, Sadie Miner Van Tessel.
I'm so excited to see Sadie on the floor tonight. She's really battled back from some injuries last year. There was a hip situation, and she did not get to compete as much as we would have loved to see. And so to see her competing all around now is just so fun as a gymnastics fan. Sadie Van Tassel has a huge opening first pass, round off back handspring, double layout, body is completely straight in the air, so hard to do. Oh, double tuck. Again, she's coming back from not competing. We will definitely be seeing that double A later. Such a strong competitor either way. Big double pike as a second pass. Lots of good control on these tumbling passes today. Really fun leap pass there. It's always a crowd favorite. When you do your pike jump or your straddle jump into what is called a Shushanova, the crowd loves it. Prepping for her final pass, round off back 1.5, front full, tons of difficulty to end with. You can see she's not super excited about that final pass. It did land a tiny bit low. As the season goes on, we'll build more endurance. We'll see a lot more better landings from these gymnasts on that final pass.
Following a 9.775 from her teammate Haley Voltaggio, here goes Hannah Nip trying to back up the 9.95 she had on balance beam last week.
Beautiful front aerial into the beat jump. Oh, holds on to it. Anytime you can see those hips go sideways, it is risky business. It is so easy to fall off once you are not facing the same way that you started. And she really pulled it back together. Now her job is to minimize any deductions that could happen. It's really easy to get in your head and start rushing. Hannah, though, is a veteran on beam. I expect that she is going to finish very strong. see how her body was so laid out. That's what the judges want to see. We don't want to see any pike in the hips. It's really easy to try and pike down, feel like you're controlling it, but that is a deduction, and these gymnasts are doing a great job of just staying laid out.
Sophie Dudley prepares for her floor routine off of a 9.75 last week, averaging a 9.775 through 2 floor routines here in 2022 for the Cougars and head coach Gard Young.
Sophie has a fun floor routine, a lot of really sharp dance. Again, another new gymnast for BYU that doesn't have a ton of experience in the lineup. BYU has had a lot of turnover in their lineups. When you look at how many gymnasts they had leave from last year, whether that's graduating or just moving on, they have handled this new class has handled the pressure of competing for the first time very well.
Dudley, one of 8 freshmen total on the roster for head coach Gard Young and the Cougars. And she is waiting that go-ahead from the judges. And is it different at all waiting for the go-ahead on an event like vault or the beam compared to your floor routine?
That's a good question. I feel like it's just awful all the way around. Because you're ready. You want to get out there, and then you just kind of got to stay loose. You can see Coach Brogan's out there talking to her, just trying to keep it casual. I'm trying to see the judges. It looks like they are still judging. They are having a conference right now. The way it works is there is a judge on each side of the floor. If the scores are more than 2/10 apart, they have to have a conference to say, what did you take on? Why are our scores that far apart? So the truth is Sophie could still be out here for a while. It looks like they're still trying to determine Sadie's score.
That's what they pay me the big bucks for, Mikkel, to ask the good questions. Or so I would like to imagine.
It's tricky in these dual meets because, you know, Sophie has to wait, but beam also has to wait because only one gymnast competes at a time. So typically by now, Sophie would be just about finished with her routine. Beam would be getting started, but the risk on beam is that you don't really want to get cold. So SUU is dealing with that over there while BYU is also waiting.
You saw assistant coach Brogan Evanson point out to Dudley that she was on camera there, and you saw the little point and the smile. Got to stay engaged and pass the time somehow. Now she's finally ready to rock and roll.
Prepping for her first pass. Round off back handspring, double pike. Woo! A little bit of power there on that landing. Again, new to floor lineup. With a little bit more experience, she's going to learn how to control that a little bit better. It's so easy too when you're just standing there waiting to get more height. Like you're like, I'm just going to go out and do it. And so we will see a few more of those mistakes when we have those big weights. Beautiful front full, front lay, handles the landing very well. Prepping for that final pass. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Tiny bit short, but does such a great job of just staying up and minimizing any deductions that could be taken. So much good experience coming for these freshman Cougars, being able to get out there and compete and really gain some valuable competing experience that is going to benefit them their entire career.
And now to round out this third rotation for Southern Utah and head coach Scotty Bauman. Speaking of relative inexperience, this is the first career balance beam routine for the freshman from Owasso High School in Oklahoma, Ellie Cachola.
Good flick lay. Standing layout, so difficult to do. Immediately into the beat jump for connection bonus value. A lot of difficulty in this routine. That switch, again, you'd have to be so strong to be able to complete that. You're just jumping off one leg that just landed again. That was a great debut set for Coachella. She does such a great job of just getting up and getting that first set under her belt and showing us she's very strong, and I'm excited to see her in the future.
And the final floor routine of the evening for the Cougars belongs to Brittany Vitkauskis, the senior originally from Portland, Oregon. Did not do the floor routine last week, but a 9.875 in week 1 at the Best of Utah.
Brittany is just a floor all-star. She is the floor captain for BYU. She's ranked 36th in the nation. Another big opening pass, a big double full, front double full for her opening pass. She just gets so much amplitude on that. That pass is so hard, and she just makes it look so easy out there. Huge back 1.5 front layout. Again, that amplitude that Brittany gets on these passes, she makes it look so easy, and that is exactly what the judges want to see. Slowing it down just a minute to get ready for that final pass. Floor routines are only 90 seconds long, but they are an exhausting 90 seconds. We will typically see the gymnasts take a little bit slower dance as we prep for that final pass. Huge Rudy again, amplitude for days. So much control on the landing. We are going to see a huge score for Brittany.
Well, on the other side of the break, we will see just what that score is. Right now, the Cougars sitting at a 48.625 on floor after a season best 49.075 last week against Nebraska. We'll see what the senior from Portland, Vitkauskis, is able to turn in, and we'll check in on Southern Utah's final scores as well as Coachella awaits her first career score on the balance beam. More gymnastics in Cedar City coming up after this. Spencer McLaughlin back with you alongside Mikkel Merkley. It is great to be bringing you some college gymnastics on a wonderful, jam-packed America First Event Center on this Friday night. And the scores are not yet up on the Jumbotron, but Brittany Vitkauskas, and you suspected this before the break, Mikkel, that she would have a very good score, and she turns in a 9-9, really anchoring that floor routine for the Cougars and Coach Young.
For sure. She just brings so much experience to that floor lineup. She's been competing in it since she was a freshman. She is a floor specialist. That is what she focuses on in practice day in and day out, and she just nails it.
Meanwhile, the final score for Southern Utah in that third rotation, a 9.775 for Ellie Cachola. So they will end their beam routine tonight with a 48.95 after a 48.975 last week. And Coach Bauman always talks to me about getting to that 49-point threshold, so still leaving a little bit to be desired are the Thunderbirds here tonight. But I want to go back to BYU for just a moment. That anchor routine by Vitkauskas, you mentioned she is a floor specialist. What is the thought between, putting someone out there who you know is going to be exceptionally strong week in and week out at the front versus at the back of that lineup?
So lineups typically are decided by putting just someone who's very consistent, is going to hit at the front of the lineup. It just sets a good tone for how the rest of the lineup will go. And then traditionally what we like to see is that the scores build. The idea is that if, Susie goes up and scores a 9-8, and then Jane gets up afterward and does a routine just as good or better, she has to score at least a 9-8. And so typically we will see the routines build. I have noticed Scotty will sometimes put a wild card at the end of his lineup, maybe someone new, so that if they fall or if they make an uncharacteristic mistake being new to the lineup, it doesn't throw off the rest of the lineup that is competing before them. Yeah,
Southern Utah in the lead right now at 147.2 compared to 147.05, and it looks like we're almost ready for our final rotation of the night. Southern Utah will be on the floor and BYU will be over on the beam. And Mikkel, when a home gymnastics team goes to the floor, it's the final rotation for a reason. When you've got a crowd like this, that has to be one of the most fun feelings you can get as a gymnast.
For sure. Your teammates are dancing along with you. The crowd is dancing along. Everyone's excited. Beam requires a little bit more composure. You have to pull it together after your floor rotation. And so it's just more fun to be able to really let loose out there to end the meet on.
In her first beam of 2022, Lauren Ono last week, a 9.775, the sophomore from San Dimas, California, looks to build on that this week.
Big flick lay to open up, a 3/10 of bonus in that pass alone. Again, the gymnasts have to receive at least 6/10 of bonus to receive that 10-0 start value. And they can get that by either doing really hard tricks and getting difficulty value, or by doing tricks in combination to get connection value. You have to have at least 1/10 of each kind of bonus to receive that 10-0 start value. Another big combination bonus here. 3/10 for that straddle 3/4. Cartwheel gainer, full, solid landing, huge opening set. Coach Natalie is so excited. She has had different lineups the last few weeks. Girls have been out sick, and she finally has her core competitors back. So I'm excited to see what the Cougars put up on beam tonight.
Top of the lineup for floor for the Thunderbirds, Kayla Horton, the junior from South Jordan, Utah.
Kayla's always so fun to watch. I love watching her on floor. Round off back 1.5, front full. Again, tons of difficulty in that pass. It's the combination value that is so impressive. Front Rudy, tiny bit of an over rotation there on the landing. You could see she stepped to the side instead of directly back. Probably a tiny, tiny deduction. But it's always better to have over rotation than under rotation. Deductions do not exist in a vacuum. So anytime you do some kind of under rotation, you'll get deducted for that. And then they'll say, oh, well, maybe she didn't have enough amplitude, or maybe this happened. So always better to go too big than hold back. Final pass, round off back 1.5, front layout. Again, just tons of amplitude, handles it very well.
Off of a 9.825 last week, she gets many high fives from her teammates, and we head back over to the beam and our third look tonight at Haley Pitu, who last week scored a 9.75, averaging a 9.725 this year on the balance beam for Coach Young and the Cougars of BYU.
It says so much about Haley that she is doing beam this year. She is a 5th year, and this is her first year competing beam. It would have been very easy for her at any point. Whoa, hold on. Great job holding on to that. It would have been very easy for her at any time during the last 4 years to be like, I don't compete beam, I'm just not going to try anymore. And instead she has just really pushed through to get in this beam lineup. So we will be looking at a pretty significant deduction for the step and the bobble out of that flick lay. So Haley's job now is to minimize any deductions, because while 6 compete and only 5 scores count, we don't know if Haley's score will be one of them that counts. Solid aerial.
She is following a 9.875 from her teammate Lauren Ono, who opened this final rotation for BYU.
An unusual dismount pass, the leap pass into the gainer full. Does it so well, really controls that landing. She has so much experience doing strong landings on the other event. It just transfers right into that beam landing.
Back to the floor, and the sophomore from New York, Haley Voltaggio, competing in her 2nd consecutive event here tonight.
Round off back handspring, double pike, tons of amplitude, a little too much power. She did step over that white line. That will be an automatic 1/10 off for an out of bounds deduction. Handspring, front full, front lay. I am loving the amplitude that I'm seeing on these front layouts. It's so easy for gymnasts to just throw their shoulders down and kind of dive the front layout around, and it's so ugly, and we have not seen a single one of those tonight, and I'm so pleased. Big double tuck, keeps it in bounds. Does a great job. She's right next to that line, and she took the tiniest little lunge to salvage getting a bigger deduction for that out of bounds deduction she'll receive from her first pass.
Eliza Millar, another freshman for Coach Young and BYU, one of 8 on the roster after a 9.7 last week on the balance beam, gets another go at it here in Cedar City.
Eliza has a very difficult opening series pass. 3 skills, flick, flick, layout. So challenging to keep that on the beam, to keep everything in line. So hard to do that. And we've seen several of these 3 skill series tonight. I've been very impressed with the level of difficulty that these teams are displaying. And again, that's why we say, you know, they're top 20 teams always. Top 25, top 20. They'll for sure end higher than 20 because they are willing to put out the difficulty that other teams may be too nervous to, or not have the ability to show.
Through 2 meets this season, BYU sits 21st in the country, Southern Utah at 18th.
Good dismount, punch front full. Again, blind landing. Anytime you see a gymnast do a front pass, it is considered a blind landing and is very hard to do.
We will await the score on the balance beam for Millar after a 9.875 and 9.7 in front of her. But back over to the floor, and we get our first and only look of the night at one of the best gymnasts on this Thunderbird roster for Coach Bauman, and that is Carly McLean, the senior from Bingham High School right here in the state of Utah.
Carly is such a powerful tumbler. I'm very excited to see the amplitude and precision that she brings to the floor this evening. Round off back handspring, double pike. Great control. You mentioned, is it different competing at home? You can see on the screen now just a sea of red. And that is so fun when you are the home team to just see how much support you have. In gymnastics, you don't compete for a school, you do club gymnastics. And so college is the first time that you ever have that school support, and it is such a fun feeling. Prepping for her final pass. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Very solid landing. You can see the mat that is on the floor right now. That is 100% allowed to be on the floor. No deduction. We just need to keep these gymnasts healthy and safe. It's a long season. Coaches are going to choose to protect their ankles if necessary.
McLean on the floor has scored a 9.9 or better 11 times in her career. She's tied for the SUU all-time record on floor with a 9.95. We'll see what score she gets later, and she will be following a 9.825 from Kayla Horton and a 9.575 from Haley Voltaggio. We go back over to the balance beam. This is Sophia McClelland.
Huge opening pass for Sophia. That mount is considered an E-level skill. She gets 2/10 a bonus just for doing it, and it counts as her turn. In gymnastics on beam, you are required to do a full turn. It's probably the least favorite requirement of any of the gymnasts. Usually you just try to get it done as fast as possible, but I love that Sophia takes it to the next level with the wolf turn. Beautiful flick lay. I'm not sure if at home you can hear the crowd. Carly just got a great score on the floor, so distracting for the beam. Sophia is doing a great job just staying on task and focusing on the skills that she needs to do. Great ring jump, again, releases the head backwards, very difficult, loses sight of the beam. Worth a lot of tenths of bonus. Big finish here. Flick. Back 1.5 in the tuck position. Such good focus from the sophomore of just staying on task despite the crowd going crazy.
And they're going crazy once again. A 9.925 for Carly McLean. And now we see one of the highest energy performers on this Southern Utah team, Rachel Smith. Assistant coach Jamie Weissong says her energy is difficult to match, and that is her personality.
Round off whip, double back, does the back handspring with no hands. Again, you can hear from the crowd on those Shushanovas. Really just a fun skill to perform. a very strong Rudy, controls the landing well.
And everybody loves Beyonce. Coming off of a 9.85, the senior from Mississippi puts on a show for the crowd. They love it. And we go back over to the balance beam. Just a handful of routines left. Elise Rollins has got one of them, a 9.725 last week on the balance beam for Coach Young.
Elise Rollins is such a consistent competitor for BYU. She is the beam captain. BYU made the decision this year, instead of doing team captains, to do beam captains, or event captains. And the girls have responded really well to it. A lot of times you spend more time with your event team than you do as a team. And so it just really unites that group. That was a huge series that we saw there. The front aerial into the flick lay, 5/10 a bonus, just for completing that pass. Back handspring into the full twisting gainer off the side of the beam. Very big set for Elise. Small deduction on the landing, the dismount landing. Overall, though, that is really all I see in that routine.
McLean had the 9.925. How does Hannah Nip follow it up? A capable floor routine performer herself. She's also scored a 9.95, tied with her teammate for the SUU record.
Opens up with a round off back handspring double pike. Great landing for Hannah Nip.
She will get the crowd into it later with her music and choreography you will see in this routine.
Hannah is such a pretty dancer. A lot of times you can tell which gymnast had ballet training growing up and did dance, and Hannah just has, she has pretty hands. She's just very graceful in the way she moves. Beautiful full front leg. She will receive a slight deduction on the landing. What the judges are looking for, you are allowed to take a step out called the lunge, but one foot has to stay still. It is not allowed to move. Because her second foot shifted slightly, she will receive a slight deduction. Double tuck, really controls that landing. You can hear the crowd. They are loving what they got to witness.
Chance of 10 coming from the Thunderbird student section right down in front of us. She will follow a 9.85 from her teammate Rachel Smith. And here, competing in the all-around, finishing it out tonight for BYU, the only gymnast on either side doing all four events, Sadie Miner Van Tassel, the last routine of the night for the Cougars.
Doing all-around is such a huge accomplishment. It's a ton of work. Again, she's coming off of a hip injury and an ankle injury, and so to just fight back on every single event, she has got to be feeling so proud of herself.
She is the reigning Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Gymnast of the Week. As the crowd applauds for the 9.925 the judges just put up for Hannah Nip. So a pair of 9.925s for the individuals on the Thunderbird side who hold the two highest scores in program history in that event. And Van Tassel completes the all-around off of a 39.25 a week ago. The reigning MRGC Gymnast of the Week has concluded the night for BYU, and now The entire meet will end, and it is Ellie Cachola who made her career debut on beam and now gets to do her floor routine.
It's such a good feeling when all the gymnasts in front of you have hit. There's a lightness that goes into your routine because you just get to go out there, there's no pressure, and just perform to the best of your abilities. Ooh, big double tuck. I did not see a flag go up. You can step on the line, you just cannot pass the line. The hard part about using the mats is that once your routine starts, your teammates are not allowed to come out and pull the mat. So if you choose to use a sting mat like that in the middle of the floor, you have to run over it. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can see it didn't even phase her. Solid, Rudy, for the final pass.
And that concludes our events for tonight. As it sits right now, Southern Utah has matched their season high on floor with a 49.1. If Cachola is able to beat the score of her teammate Haley Voltaggio, a 9.575, the Thunderbirds could surpass that number, and we will see what the scores are when we come back. Tight one in Cedar City. Just a few tenths or less of a point deciding these two top 25 gymnastics programs. It has been a joy to watch. We'll get the final results when we come back on ESPN+. Utah University alongside Mikkel Merkley, former BYU gymnast Spencer McLaughlin. Great to be with you. They're tallying up the final scores, but Mikkel, just your instant reactions to the totality of what we saw tonight. Some pretty high-level gymnastics.
Great gymnastics and great for how early it is in the season. I believe BYU is going to get their 196 that they've been chasing. It's so great to see those scores build as the season continues and see some of those rookie mistakes start to go away.
Yeah, and Southern Utah right now sitting at a 196.45 according to the live stats. That would give them the edge over BYU's current score. We'll wait to say anything final. We'll take you to the PA when that time comes, but a couple of impressive routines there in the final rotation on the floor. Carly McLean for Southern Utah on floor, and Hannah Knipp, both 9.925s, and having gymnasts as talented as those two is such an advantage for this Thunderbirds coaching staff.
Especially at home when you can feel the whole crowd is into it, everyone's yelling 10, 10, 10. And it's just such a fun environment to be part of. I'm sure both coaches are very proud of their athletes tonight. Yeah,
and they definitely should be. We're awaiting the final tally. So are both of the teams as they're stretching it out a little bit. And is that sort of a cathartic feeling there at the end where you do all the preparation, all the work for just those handful of few moments, or maybe a 90-second routine, and then finally you get to sit down and say, you know what? Let's just stretch it out and say we're done for a little.
On the gymnast, this is actually not even a stretch for them. They are so flexible. It's just an easy way to sit.
Yes, indeed it is. So a 9.725 it looks like for Ellie Cachola to close things out for Southern Utah on the floor. Sadie Miner-Van Tassel, meanwhile, 9.7. She reaches the 39-point threshold for the second week in a row, competing in the all-around. She was one of those gymnasts that missed the first week for BYU at the Best of Utah. The Cougars were still able to take third and best these Thunderbirds, but SUU tonight looks like they might get the better of BYU.
For sure. We're going to see the back and forth all season from these two teams. They're very good. What's great about gymnastics is that wins and losses don't actually matter until postseason. So both teams can go home happy tonight with their performances, knowing that they are bettering their average and their rankings going into season.
And what's at stake in these final score calculations for the judges? Southern Utah hasn't beaten BYU in a dual meet since 2019. They've lost the last several to the Cougars. They were also behind them at the Best of Utah in the season opener a couple of weeks ago. So even though, as you've been talking about, it's not as much about the wins, it's about the scores, and both sides are going to be over that 196 number, which for your third meet in the season is certainly a great place to be, especially for BYU, who are yet to compete at home. They will do so for the first time next week against Boise State. They'll host Southern Utah there in a couple weeks, but it's still a mental hurdle to get over for Southern Utah if they are going to end up getting the win tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no one hates winning, right? Like, everyone loves a good win. So even though both teams will be happy, Southern Utah would be very excited about taking home a win tonight.
And we're just waiting the final calculations, as are the athletes down on the floor, but there were so many impressive routines. Southern Utah had a couple of 9.9s on their side across a couple of events, but BYU did as well. And as we've been talking about, doing that away from home, even though you don't get the extra juice of the crowd, mentally it has to feel at least a little bit better knowing that you did it without the crowd. You think about, what could I do with my fans behind me?
Away from home and with a very young, very inexperienced team that is kind of being thrown into the fire. You know, go out and compete. A lot of times in gymnastics, what the freshmen get to do is it's called an exhibition routine. You compete in the 7th spot just for experience. These freshmen do not have that privilege, and they have gone out and really shown that they belong to be here.
Right there, you're seeing someone who is most definitely not a freshman for the Thunderbirds, Hannah Nip, a 9.925 after 9.75 on floor last week. She was very clean in her routine.
Very clean. I love the toe point. We talked about what a beautiful dancer she is. Tons of amplitude on her tumbling passes. Just brings a lot of sophistication to her set.
And there you see the interaction she gets from her teammates. The crowd is in on that as well, and they always raise their excitement level right before each of those tumbling passes, and everyone senses it. You all know it's coming, and it's still exciting.
As a gymnast, you really appreciate it, though, because you are so tired. You're so tired. And so having everyone cheering you on as you go into that pass, it's so helpful as far as just giving you that little extra burst of energy that you need to complete it well.
Well, as you take a look at the replay of Hannah Nip's routine, and we are still awaiting final scores. I've been informed that BYU has challenged 2 scores on the Cougars' floor routines, and Abby Beeston went from a 9.775 to a 9.825, and Addie Reeder went from 9.7 to a 9.775, so they'll finish with a floor score of 48.925. There you're seeing the BYU beam score, 49.075. And that is their highest mark on beam of the season. And that goes back to something you've talked about a number of times tonight, Mikkel. You want to see improvement throughout the year. And sure, it might feel good to come out of the gates with a 196.5 or a 197.1 like Utah did a couple of weeks ago. But ultimately, what these coaches are looking for from their teams are improvement week by week, and setting a season high is just that.
Yes, exactly. The way those corrections work is judges are not perfect, and they don't have the benefit of instant replay like we do. So if a coach feels like, hey, that score was not fair, then they are welcome to challenge it. However, it's risky business, because if the judge says, nope, I stand by my decision, there is an extra 10th taken off the team's score. So Garjung must have felt like, hey, these are very obvious things that need to be corrected, and the judges agreed with them, so it paid off.
Yeah, it certainly did, and in a meet like this that looks like it is going to be close once again, and we are going to get the final scores. We'll go down to the PA announcer.
Unofficial final results, starting with the individual results on vault. In a 3-way tie for event champion, starting with BYU in a score of 9.875, Sadie Minor Van Tassel. Also with a score of 9.875 from BYU, Lexi Griffith. Additionally tied with a score of 9.875 from Southern Utah, Caitlin Coe. Next up, the individual results on uneven parallel bars. In 3rd place with a score of 9.9 from BYU, Haley Pitu. In 2nd place with a score of 9.925 from BYU, Anissa Alvarado. And your event champion with a score of 9.95, tying a career high from Southern Utah University, Shailin Murakami. The next individual results on the balance beam, we have a three-way tie for event champion with a score of 9.875 from BYU, Sophia McClellan. Additionally, with a score of 9.875 from BYU, Eliza Millar. Additionally, with a score of 9.875 from BYU, Lauren Ono. The individual results on the floor exercise: in third place with a score of 9.9 from BYU, Brittany Vakaukas. And in a tie for event champion with a score of 9.925 from Southern Utah, Hannah Nip. Also scoring a 9.925 from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. Your all-around champion with a total score of 39.075 from BYU, Sadie Minor Van Tassel. All right, and your unofficial scores: in second place with a score of 196.4, BYU, and in first place with a score of 196.45, Southern Utah University.
This one closer even than that one was, 196.45 to 196.4. Mikkel, it doesn't get a whole lot closer than that.
0.05 for the separation. Again, super fun moment for SUU tonight. Go home with a win, that's always fun. Honestly, both teams are going to be very proud of their performances out here tonight and will go home to rest easy after this meet.
Well, Southern Utah rides a season best 49.25 on the floor routine to a victory in an event last year where they averaged just over 49.1. So that is another sign of improvement for this Thunderbird team, but as we've talked about, Mikkel, both good scores over that 196 number that both of these coaches look for on either side, frankly, and both will certainly keep them in the top 25 going forward.
Yeah, so what's going to happen also in the future is you only have to count 6 scores.
All right, fans, don't forget your Flippin' Birds will be back.
At least, and then you can count some home scores. So this is a great away score for BYU and a great home score for SUU to put in their bank going into their national rankings.
A 1/10 lower score than what they got last week here in the win against Arizona, but still one that head coach Scotty Bauman will be pleased with, I'm sure. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will hear from the Southern Utah head coach. He will join me to talk about the meet and the second straight win for the Thunderbirds. Keep it here in Cedar City. Back in Cedar City, where Southern Utah picks up its second straight win at home against MRGC rival BYU, a tight one here inside the AFEX. Spencer McLaughlin on hand, joined now by SU head coach Scotty Bauman. And coach, a close one would be understating things, I would say. What was the mood down there on the floor?
That was a good matchup the entire night. It was fun. You could feel the energy. You could feel how close that competition was. BYU had a great meet. They looked amazing. That was fun. And that crowd, oh my Lord, that was incredible. They were so much fun to be down in front of.
They were bringing the energy all night long. I'm pretty sure their favorite routine of all of them is Rachel Smith on the floor when she works Beyonce into it. That's when the students really start. They hear that music come on, they all stand up in a swarm and they start going nuts.
Absolutely.
When you have an environment like that at home, how much of an advantage is it to be able to compete in front of an energetic crowd like this?
It's a huge advantage because, that last rotation, you're starting to get tired. The meet's starting to drag on a little bit, and you got to get the energy up for the probably the hardest event. Floor takes speed, power, flexibility, you know, endurance, all of that stuff. So you have to get up for floor a little bit sometimes at the end of a meet, and the crowd really pushes us. I love it. Our Southern Utah University's crowds are the best.
You guys put up a career, or a season best, I should say, 49.25 on floor, beating your mark in the floor routines from the previous two meets with the best of Utah, and then last week in the win against Arizona. What did you like about your team's performance there, specifically with Hannah Knipp and Carla McLean, a pair of 9.925s?
I loved it. Those two, you know, those two have been kind of fidgeting around with their floor routine all year long, and it's nice to see them finally put it together. They looked great. I was really proud of them. Ellie Cachola there at the end, you know, a freshman being put in that position. She really came through for us, not just on floor, but on balance beam as well. Every single 10th out there counted tonight, and we needed every bit of it. But I was real proud of the girls. You know, we had to pull Aubrey Schwartz out tonight. But for COVID reasons, but she's totally back. She's fine. We're just trying to be really super safe with her bring back to competition. So I've been thoroughly pleased with everything.
As you look up and down the scores that your team put up tonight, there were a lot of good ones, but was there one routine in particular that sticks out in your mind and will stay in your mind in the coming weeks?
Oh yeah, for sure. Shailene Murakami's bar routine. She's scored a 995 3 or 4 times now in her career.
3 times in her career.
3 times, and she is utterly flawless. She swings so good, and her Jaeger is huge, and she drills her dismount almost every time, hits every single handstand. I don't even know where the half ten's coming from, but I am so impressed with that routine, and it's just been getting better every week. So, and I was really proud of Stephanie Trevor. We had to pull Aubrey, one of our best bar workers, and she came in and did a great job in that 6th spot. And then Ellie Cachola on floor did a great job filling in for Aubrey.
Yeah, Trevor came in and gave you a 9.8 on the bars this week after not doing bars last week. That was her first time doing it this year. You had Cachola with her first performance on beam. How do you prepare your gymnasts for those moments when it's their first time competing in a particular event at the collegiate level?
It's just practice. They have to trust the process. And they've done these routines so many times, Spencer. It's so easy for them. But in front of our crowd, and sometimes at Southern Utah, our freshmen try a little too hard, and they haven't learned how to calm down and settle down a little bit. And that's one of the things we work on constantly. But Ellie is starting to find her rhythm and her groove, and she is going to be a fun competitor to watch.
Finally for you, Coach, Mikkel Merkley and I were talking throughout the broadcast about how gymnastics very much a sport, and you've talked to me about this as well, one where you want to progress throughout the season, get a little better here, a little better there,
right,
and then start to peak at the end. How do you feel your team's progression has gone through the first few weeks, and where do you want to see them go?
I love it. We're continuing to improve. We work on landings every day, and when we warmed up tonight, our landings were so good, you know, but we're still doing little things in the routines and under pressure that we need to fix, and as the season goes on, they'll settle down, and they're going to be just fine. The mistakes we're making now are easily fixable, and I'm not even worried about it.
Well, it was enough to get your second straight win in front of the home fans, not by a wide margin, 196.45 to 196.4 for the 21st ranked BYU Cougars. The 18th ranked Thunderbirds pick up a win and a couple of great scores here tonight in Sears City. Appreciate you taking the time to join us, Coach. We'll be back with Mikkel Merkley for a quick wrap-up right after this. Shai Murakami, Spencer McLaughlin alongside Mikkel Merkley. And Mikkel, this was just such an almost flawless routine from Murakami.
Flawless and has so much difficulty. That Higgins into the Jaeger, we do not get to, what a treat for our eyes. We do not get to see that very often.
A couple of 196 scores here inside the America First Event Center in Southern Utah by 5/100ths of a point. Gets the win by the slimmest of margins, so they knock off BYU in a dual meet for the first time since 2019. That one was pretty close as well, separated by just 0.35, but tonight just a little bit closer. And, you know, for BYU, you fall just that much short, and I'm sure several of those gymnasts will be thinking about if I had just done this or if I had done that, but that's not something that you can really afford to focus on if you want to get to where you want to be at the end of the season.
For sure they can't. Luckily for them, there will be another matchup later in the season, I believe February 18th. These teams will meet up again in Provo, and the Cougars will have another chance to beat the Thunderbirds.
Well, we will be anxiously awaiting that one. We can only hope it was half as entertaining as it was tonight. The crowd was fantastic. The gymnasts were excellent. The scores were great. We had some late meet drama there with the challenge scores that we were awaiting, and ultimately 5/100ths of a point the difference for the Flippin' Birds. I'd like to give a special shout out to my partner tonight, Mikkel Merkley, who came in on very short notice through no one's fault. We were short-handed, and thankfully for all of you, you didn't have to listen to just me tonight, and you got to hear a wonderful insight. You really bailed us out, and we appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. That will do it for us tonight. For those of you Thunderbird fans out there, you can catch me on the call tomorrow for Southern Utah's afternoon matchup with Idaho State. This has been a production of ESPN. All games and meets and matches are streaming live and archived in the ESPN app. Final score from the AFEC, 196.45 to 196.4. Southern Utah edges BYU for the first time in a dual meet since 2019. For my partner, Mikkel Merkley, our entire production crew, I'm Spencer McLaughlin signing off. So long, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your night.